there. This is July, let's see, today is the 14th, I believe. Yes, July 14th, 2017. And it's almost exactly 11 o'clock in the morning here in Northern California on this Friday. And today I'm going to talk about a lot of different stuff as usual, but I kind of wanted the theme to be what special creatures we are as human beings and how we've got big shoes to fill, but we've been trained to be small-minded, narrow-minded, rather brute beastish. In other words, just to be like drones, tools of the establishmentarians for their purposes, to fulfill their whims and desires. And the fact that anybody that's coping today in this mad world is has something positive to offer humanity, because a lot of people don't cope. As we all know, they lose it. People kill themselves and have a very difficult time contending with a mad world. And the funny thing is, it's not really funny, but it's just that God understands, and it's a good thing to struggle with a world that is insane, basically, that's riddled with fraud up one side and down the other, that has trained us to be these small-minded brute beasts that they desire, and for their purposes. And it's the same old story. You could go back thousands of years, it's the same mentality. Now, for me, coping and believing that I need not be any man's enemy is very important to me. And it goes back to the teachings of Jesus in the Bible, the whole love your enemy thing. So not only is it okay to love those who hate you without a cause, and this is so often the case, and it's a real drag because it's to no avail. There's no profit in making somebody hate you. So anybody in their right mind does not go out of their way or seek to make others hate them. But in the process of standing up for the truth and exposing the evil in the world, and how insane the entire established system is, this monetary based unreality, where we're all subjugated, we're all enslaved by the money masters, those that control the currency, the issuance, the printing of money. Okay, it's that simple. That's where the power is. It's in that. And if you go back anciently, it's been the same old thing over and over. This trickery really is what it is. And it goes against the will of the people in every case. It's not what the people want, especially when you come out of a slump like we've gone through a period in America when there seemed to be some egalitarian thinking that was working, that was starting to prevail. But apparently the timing is off, because all things are happening on earth in the civilization of humanity on God's terms. He's the one that has to put his foot down at some point. And that's talked about in the book of Revelation, because ultimately mankind can't fix his own problems. Okay, it really comes down to that. Nevertheless, it can't stop anybody from confronting the evil offensively, getting in the face of it and addressing it and fighting the good fight in so doing. This is critical for everybody that's on the side of righteousness and truth and justice and mercy and all good things. Okay, if you want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, you've got to fight for it. You've got to not let people stay in ignorance, because that's where so many people are. They're in a trance. They can't handle the reality that's so horrific, and so they kind of bury their head in the sand. That's the safe zone, and it troubles me, because we've all got to carry the cross to some degree. We've all got to give a damn. This is loving. I mean, how do we define loving other people if it's not caring about other people? And so we all have an obligation. If you claim to see the light, that you're enlightened, you're ready for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and ready to expose all the evil in this world and fix things and be God's friend and be a friend to humanity in so doing, then you've got a big job. You've got a cross to bear. You've got an obligation, responsibility to talk to everybody that'll listen about what's going on in the world and these rulers and how illegitimate they are and how they've been around for thousands of years. That same caliber, that same mentality, that torch has been handed down. The power of the money printing press and these people behind it, the people that legitimize it, like the Congress and Senate, right, with their votes. They vote to increase the debt. So they're kicking the can down the road. We all know that. We all know this thing can't end well in that regard, that there's got to be pain somewhere. When you say the buck stops here, it's sort of like God, there's going to be pain when he puts his foot down, right? When all this thing hits, this whole business hits the fan of how we've been living, and we've squandered the grace of God, really. Because, Jesus is the last propitiation for our sins. That's what's written. So this is it. And what is a sin that really irks God? I mean, consider it, really. I mean, if you were God, every one of us has the ability to put ourselves in the place of God Almighty. It's not blasphemous. He wants us to know him and understand him, his character and nature. And I say his loosely because it's just in the same way, I think, that we refer to the earth as the mother, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, right? It's the feminine. It in no ways diminishes or marginalizes the feminine part of God, because that's established in the very first chapter of the Bible, that we created them in our image and in our likeness, male and female. And this whole idea, like Jesus, he talked about just a little, but he pointed out when they were complaining that he was likening himself to God, equal with God and all this, he said, the Father and I are one, these sort of statements, and all that the Father has is mine. And so in the eyes of the men, they couldn't wrap their minds around the metaphor. And so they attacked him, they hated him, they wanted to kill him because he made himself equal with God. But even King David, Jesus alluded to the teachings even in the Old Testament, where it was understood. I mean, being made in the image and likeness of God, just having that basic understanding this idea of God being like our parents, our divine parents, our creator, our maker, right? Same thing. You think of your parents, they made me, right? And that God, of course, is all powerful, and that we are likened to little gods with a small g. Okay, to be humble, of course, to be humble, and always recognize first that anything great that we can ever achieve in our lives is because God gave us the wherewithal. And so there is no glory for any man to have out there. This whole idea of having an ego, being important to succeed in the world. I mean, who needs it? It's all for the birds. I mean, it's just vanity and conceit and thinking that you're more important than others, this self-righteous attitude. I've been reading this book that was written by Gerald Flurry from the Philadelphia Church of God, and I know a lot of people disagree with his teachings, and I don't agree with everything he teaches. I think each one of us has to decide stuff on our own. But he's very condemning of, for instance, Russia and Putin. He thinks they're terrible. He doesn't like Iran. He says they're the terrorist capital of the world or something. And I don't know everything. Maybe he knows some things I don't know. But I listen to a lot of different people out there. And I don't get the feeling that Putin and Russia are that much of a threat. And I don't understand why even Trump and Alex Jones, they both feel compelled to say things that are untoward Russia and Putin. And of course, Gerald Flurry, too. I mean, he'd be on board with that same camp. In fact, like so many of the Democrats, have this condemning attitude. And I think that, for the Democrats, I don't think for any of them it's genuine. I really don't. I think in their heart of hearts that they actually do like Putin. They actually do like Russia. They like the direction Russia's going. They like the fact that he's got mass support from his people. They like the direction he's taken the country. And, we see that he's fighting against terrorism with Assad. I mean, he knows that Syria is certainly not going to be any better with these evil rulers, these tyrants, these, what John McCain calls the freedom fighters, okay, which we all know they're the headloppers. I mean, that are very intolerant of any other faiths. They're very, it's radical Islam, okay, is the way I guess you would describe it. It's not people that are really worthy to live around civilized people because they are just too tyrannical. They're very much like the New World Order. But the New World Order, actually, I've got more respect for ISIS than the New World Order, because ISIS will tell you to your face, yes, I'd like to cut your head off just because you're a Christian, you don't believe the way I do, or whatever their pretext or context is, their rationalization. Okay. And it's not okay. But, we're supposed to hand it over to, so Russia's been fighting against these people and saying, no, we can't, we can't tolerate the intolerant. Okay. We've all got to tolerate, right? We've all got to say, you're a human being and I respect you for that. And I will only harm you in self-defense. I'm not going to aggressively, offensively go and harm somebody physically. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Not with me and not with most people in their right minds. But that's not in your right mind to just haphazardly, randomly go say, well, you don't believe the way I do, I'm gonna kill you. I mean, that's not okay. But New World Order's like that. They're just more sneaky the way they're doing things. I mean, to this day, the mainstream media is not talking about this weather modification program, geoengineering, chemtrailing. They're not saying nothing about that and the effect that might have on the earth, but they're just blaming humans, at large, up one side, down the other, for global warming, climate change. And we all know it's ridiculous, but so many people go along with it. They've got a consensus, right? They are in agreement. They need it for their funding, right? For these researches and all this, these grants that they get. Okay, we understand how it works. We've all got to understand just how messed up we are as a species, as a civilization, and know what God is angry about. So if God returns tomorrow, we've got to be ready. We don't want to be like, this book I'm reading about, book of Malachi and his warnings and encouragements. But we don't want to be like the Laodiceans, okay, those that thought they could see but really didn't see. We don't want to believe that we're well healed and we're rich and in need of nothing, when really we're pitiable and blind and naked and wretched and we don't see it. We want to make sure we get it. We just get how profoundly humanity's been duped and for how long. I mean, we got to wrap our mind around some heavy stuff, man. This is heavy stuff to wrap your mind around. But it's got to come to an end. The good guy has to win. Otherwise, it'd be an unreadable story. Okay? It would be an unwatchable movie. Nobody would want to, right? We know that the good guy has to win this thing. Everybody in their right mind that's a good guy. I mean, I'm talking about the upright, the righteous, those that care about every last human being, big and small, that are humanitarians, egalitarians, that are good humanitarians, just people that respect other human beings equally with themselves and say, look, okay, we're in this thing together. We got to learn to live together in peace and harmony, safety and security, freedom and prosperity, all those things we all want. And we need to be absolutely free someday. And we have to know what's holding us captive. We have to admit it and confess it, understand it is the money masters. Okay, it is these people controlling our lives, our very survival, our very existence through this tax that we know as the cost of living. It's a tax on your survival, your very existence. We've got to wrap our minds around this stuff and how wrong that is, how immoral, unethical, unholy, ungodly, untenable in perpetuity. It can't go on like this. We cannot keep on screwing things up and calling it progress. We can't. We can't tolerate the diminishment of our standard of living. We've all got to give a damn about the least of men. But as long as so many people, they have a critical mass of well-heeled people, financially speaking, that have enough financial freedom to please them, we've got a big problem. We've got a lot of Laodiceans, but we need to be like the Philadelphians, who are really earnest and filled with zeal for God's will to be done on earth. When they pray the Lord's Prayer, they mean it. They're desperate, they're panting, they're thirsty, they need relief from the evil that's ruling over the people in the land. Okay, that's what they want. They want God's will to be here on earth, ASAP, okay? And they have goodwill toward all men, even their enemies. Okay, that's the whole thing. I mean, that's very powerful. When you know you've got goodwill toward people, even people that hate you. I mean, just so you know, they hate you without a cause, because you've got to speak your mind. You've got to be true to yourself. You've got to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're to be numbered among the righteous, those found worthy to inherit a better world. And right now, I mean, if you're fighting for it right now, you're putting your hand up right now and here and now, and you will gain your reward. You will gain blessings, gladness of heart. I mean, you're doing what you have to do. If you feel compelled to do something, you're commissioned to do something and you don't do it, then how are you ever going to get any reward? So even in the here and now, you get comforted, you get encouraged, you're doing the right thing by giving a damn about others. That is loving your fellow human being. Is just